and certainly some dangerous conditions around beaches. But Storm Anthony does move through, and by Sunday a brighter day is expected. Still some heavy showers around. Lighter winds, however. These showers will be slow moving where they do occur, but they'll be hit and miss. Sunny spells in between. And then the trend through next week is for the weather to become gradually drier, brighter and warmer.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 9 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and all around the world, unless, of course, you are a flat earther. I am Patrick Christie, standing in for the legendary Mr. Mark Dolan. Coming up on the show, in my big opinion, Labour wants the party of the working class, now the party of illegal immigrants. In the big story, is King Charles right to snub Harry and Meghan from the one-year memorial for Queen Elizabeth II? In my hot take at 10, British culture is under attack. Everything from our food to our schools to our countryside. But how on earth do we stop it? So it's a heck of a busy hour to come. Put something cold and fizzy in the fridge or fire up that kettle and let's make a Friday night of it, shall we? But first, it is the headlines with the wonderful Aaron Armstrong.
Very good evening to you. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB Newsroom. Emergency services in Birmingham are dealing with an ongoing incident following reports of an explosion. Residents in the Hall Green area reported hearing one or more loud bangs this afternoon on Sarhold Road. A West Midlands Fire Service says the blaze is now under control. No more details, but we'll bring you more on this as soon as we get it. A man who murdered his baby stepson has been sentenced to a minimum of 28 years in prison. Craig Crouch has been convicted of killing 10-month-old Jacob, who was found dead in his cot in December 2020. He'd suffered 39 rib fractures from numerous assaults in the months leading up to his death. Jacob's mother, Gemma Barton, was sentenced to 10 years for causing or allowing his death. Mr Justice Kerr said Crouch caused Jacob intense and prolonged suffering.
He was a small baby who had not yet learned to walk or talk. Sadly, he never did so. Your attacks on him were an abuse of trust of the grossest kind. You knew he was dependent on the adults caring for him to protect him from harm. Instead of protecting him, you killed him.
A TikTok influencer and her mother have been found guilty of murdering two men in a high-speed car chase near Leicester. Mahek Bukhari and her mother Anne Sreen ambushed Saqib Hussain and Mohammed Hashim Ijazuddin and rammed their car off the road. It happened after Mr Hussain threatened to use sexually explicit material to expose an affair he was having with Ms Bukhari's mother. Two further defendants were found guilty of murder, while three others were found guilty of manslaughter. The government's turning to the private sector in an effort to clear record NHS waiting lists. 8 of 13 new community diagnostic centres to be opened in England will be operated by independent companies. Services, though, will be free to patients. They'll carry out almost 750,000 additional scans, checks and tests every year. The Russian opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, says Vladimir Putin must not be allowed to achieve his goals after being sentenced to a further 19 years in jail. The Kremlin's most vocal political critic was found guilty of creating and funding an extremist organisation. He's currently serving an 11-year sentence for fraud at a maximum security penal colony. In a tweet this evening, Mr Navalny said Russians are being forced to surrender their country without a fight to a gang of traitors and has urged followers not to lose the will to resist. And unseasonably strong winds are expected to batter parts of the UK this weekend, with forecasters warning of a danger to life. Storm Anthony, the first to be named by the Met Office this season, will hit Wales and southwest England from tonight, with winds of up to 65 miles per hour predicted, and a yellow rain warning has also been issued for Northern Ireland. This is GB News across the UK on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker. Now it is over to Patrick.
Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. I am, of course, Patrick Christys. I'm in for Mark while he's sunning himself abroad. Who'd do a thing like that, hey? But coming up tonight, in my big opinion, the Labour Party wants the party to give a voice to the working class. Now it seems they're only interested in standing up for illegal immigrants. How on earth did that happen? And in the big story, as King Charles reportedly snubs Harry and Meghan for the one-year memorial for Queen Elizabeth II at Balmoral, royal expert Charlie Ray joins me to discuss whether the King is right to do so. I think he is. He's actually grown a backbone, hasn't he? But what do you think? And this story had me in stitches. The Falkland Islands advertises for an equality czar, costing over 40 grand a year, despite the population being outnumbered by sheep to the tune of 136 to 1. We better hope that sheep never go to war with humans on the Falkland Islands. But with NHS diversity officers still being hired and paid more than a lot of nurses whilst the health service is under unbearable strain, has this obsession with diversity gone too far? In my take at 10, from illegal immigration to critical race theory to debanking country sportsmen, British culture is bang under attack. And I think we should be very worried about that. My newsmaker tonight is the eminent political editor of Express Online. It's David Mad Dog Maddox, who brings us the latest on Rishi Sunak's house being used for an eco-warrior stunt. He's got an interesting but deeply illegal way of handling that lot. GB News is, of course, the home of the papers as well, with tomorrow's front pages from 10:30 8:30 p.m. sharp. We'll be bringing you all of the latest with the 3 top pundits who haven't been told what to say and who don't follow the script. We've got political commentator Chloe Dobbs, former editor of Labour List, Peter Edwards, and of course, as well, Deputy Leader of the UK Independence Party, Rebecca Jane, all looking mighty glamorous this evening, may I say, so I'm bang up for this. Now, here we go, our talented, sincere people being put off going into politics because of stunts like we saw from Greenpeace this week. Why would you go into politics if someone's just going to climb your house, dig up everything from your past, do everything? What is enticing the good folk of Britain into the political sphere these days? Anything at all? I deeply suspect that we're just going to entice psychopaths to be our politicians, if we haven't already. And as reports say, that many country sports clubs are being denied accounts or credit. Are we witnessing the demise of our British countryside activities? I think we're probably going to have time to squeeze in 1 or 2 more, are we? With a Labour councillor posting advice on loopholes for bypassing immigration laws. Would a Labour government ever deal with illegal migration? Plus, your emails. It says here in my script, even the spicy ones. I'm going to change that. Only the spicy ones. Get on board. GBViews@GBNews.com. This show has a golden rule. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's get to work, shall we? And we start with my big opinion. Well, Labour used to be the party of the working class, but now they are the party of illegal immigrants, it appears. Labour have refused to sack a councillor who filmed herself essentially offering her services to help illegal immigrants stay in Britain. Check this out.
Hi listeners, Iram Ali here, immigration solicitor. Are you in the UK without a valid visa? Are you illegal or have you overstayed your visa? Do not fear, Iram Ali is here to help you regularise your visa in the UK and submit an application to the Home Office based on your human rights. It is extremely important to make sure you become legal in the UK. There is an extremely hostile environment for overstayers here, so you must make sure that you can submit an application to the Home Office, become legal and be en route to indefinite leave to remain. So contact me, let's have that conversation and work out what needs to be done to get your stay here in the UK.
She should make another video. There is an incredibly hostile environment for people who've illegally broken into someone's house and want to stay there forever. Hire me as your solicitor and I will help you. Now, the one good thing about that video for me is this, right? Which is that it should make it very easy to deport people. We can just check to see who's replied saying that they need her services and bingo, get the plane ready on the runway. But this shows the attitude of the Labour Party. Do they want to help illegals stay in Britain? They arguably want more illegals to come here, given that they've opposed the illegal migration bill. They've been against deporting foreign murderers, rapists and drug dealers. They've been accused of helping with voter fraud by opposing voter ID. Now, if we get a Labour government, it will just be a green light, will it not? For everyone to come here illegally after we've seen that video. The fact that Labour haven't got rid of this lady as a councillor in Newcastle just shows that, in my view, they don't actually take illegal immigration seriously at all. But it also puts the spotlight firmly on the legal profession again. A sting operation recently exposed several law firms for making up asylum claims in return for wads of cash. Now, I am convinced that this is happening all over the country. Forget ambulance chasers. We've got an army of small boat chasers and other illegal immigrant chasers. No wonder that Labour are in favour of mass immigration, seemingly pro-illegal immigration in some cases. Let them in, say that you're on their side, and then get all their votes. Load the dice with wrong uns and watch the Labour votes come rolling in. Well, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? GBviews at gbnews.com. I will get to your emails after the break. But reacting to my big opinion tonight on my brilliant panel of political commentator Chloe Dobbs, former editor of Labour List and political commentator Peter Edwards, and deputy leader of the UK Independence Party, Rebecca Jane. Rebecca, I will start with you. What do you make of all that?
Wow, a Labour councillor using a political problem for her own personal gain. Not surprised me in the slightest. She's about as corrupt as every other politician that we've got today as well, in my personal opinion. It's appalling. I don't understand why Labour will ever stand by her, but of course they will, because that is all that Labour want. They want to be pro-immigration, all about these safe and legal routes and all the rest of it. In the meantime, our country can't cope, and if they get in power, it'll be far worse than what we're experiencing now.
Right, OK, well, look, it's always ladies first, so I'll double up on that, if that's all right, Peter. You're going to have to hold your horse, I'm afraid. Chloe, what do you think about this? Is it unfair to say that that fear that a lot of people have about, you know, vote Labour, just get illegal immigration to the max, might actually be coming true?
Yes, absolutely. Now, on the one hand, it is good if there are people out there putting out legal information for immigrants, because a lot of the people who come over on small boats, they have absolutely no idea what the rules are here. They just come here because my cousin's here and he says it's good in the UK, for example. However, the way that she's put it across is just come here. It doesn't matter if you're an illegal immigrant because we'll just make you a legal one. There is absolutely no incentive at the moment not to cross the channel because we can't move them out of the country. We'll put them up in a luxury flat and we'll give you a free lawyer to help your stay become indefinite.
So why didn't the Labour Party just get rid of this woman?
Well, I have to say, I think you risk collapsing under the weight of your own hysteria. The papers like the Daily Mail and the Daily Express will be in ecstasy when they see a video like that, but it's not really borne out by reality. You know, can Labour just sack a council like that? It doesn't work like that. So Iram Ali took down the video, lots of source quotes in newspapers she'd been spoken to. I think as a journalist, you know, when someone's been spoken to, that means they've been told off a bit by someone else in the Labour Party. She won't be in the next Labour government if they're elected. She's not a member of Parliament. She's not standing as a member of Parliament. So
does it not speak to a culture, though,
very
Peter?
modest.
Does it not speak to a culture, though, that you've got somebody there who feels comfortable enough as a Labour councillor to sit in their car and basically tout their wares as someone who can get illegal immigrants to stay in Britain?
Well, first of all, I don't know why it would speak to a culture. There's tens of thousands of councillors of all parties around the UK.
Not doing that, though, are they?
No, they're not doing that.
Just the Labour one.
It was a very unwise video to make, which is why it's been taken down. But I think the danger is trying to essentially go with the flow of the Daily Mail and Daily Express to have a massive read across about what this could lead to under a Labour government. Remember, the Labour Party is led by a barrister, you know, who wants to uphold the rule of law.
Well, indeed, who's, of course, also at pains to tell us that his dad was a toolmaker, although many people say you don't need to remind us of that, Kay. Your existence, of course, is evidence alone. But you're shaking your head, Rebecca, there. Why?
Because it's all a load of absolute nonsense, isn't it? We can all make excuses, but the one thing about politicians, and the reason why I entered politics, for goodness sakes, is because people are not honest about who they are, and this is flushing them out. This is who this person really was. I want to know exactly who they are before we start voting them into power. She's the definition of Labour and the exact reason why they need to not get in power. OK, all right, and I'll throw it back over to you, Chloe, because immigration will be a big thing on people's minds when they go into that polling booth at the next general election, as will things like net zero. I wonder now whether or not the Tories are starting to draw clear, distinctive lines between themselves and the Labour Party on some key issues. When it comes to things like actually at least trying to control our borders, not just pretending about it, and also things like, you know, the net zero agenda.
Firstly, I'd say that there are a lot of people, including Labour voters, who voted for Brexit on the basis that they wanted us to have control of our borders. And TikToks like that coming out are not going to sway those voters to vote for Labour. However, Rishi Sunak doesn't seem to be getting a strong grip on the small boats at the moment. So can the Conservatives really say we are the ones who are going to protect our borders and Labour are going to mess it up?
No, they can't.
They're both going to mess it up.
No, they can't, and that is a problem. Peter, do you think that there should be a deeper investigation into the legal profession at the moment? Because the Mail have just done a sting operation on quite a few law firms that were willing to be incredibly dodgy about it all. I really do think that there is a cottage industry of small boat chasers at the moment.
Small boat chasers, I mean, I think you've been reading too many newspapers too frequently. You know, this is
kind of what I do for a living, though, mate, to be fair, that.
This is very technical. There's a Solicitors Regulation Authority. They can investigate whether they like, if they've got evidence of wrongdoing. But I want to, so, you know, that's down to them. They know more about the legal profession than I do. But I want to make the point that UKIP, I think, are largely irrelevant now. They have 0 seats in the House of Commons, and they're probably going to have 0 after the next election.
Go.
So I think...
Where did that come from, Peter?
Peter there is cruising for a bruising on a Friday night. This is what we're going to get, you see. You don't have to go down to the pub to see a massive physical scrap. You're going to get one right here. So you think that UKIP are irrelevant. Rebecca, I'll get you to respond to that, because...
Yeah, why not?
Because you have to, legally. Go on.
You can have...
It's the right answer.
Listen, I love your little diversion. I love your little sledgehammer of a personal attack there. It's lovely of you. No, knock it off. I'm ready for it now. So that's fine. You can have that opinion. Quite a few people do. I don't mind that in the slightest, because you know what? We do need to make a comeback. We're nowhere near as big as what we were, and that's absolutely fine. I'm not here to lie to you. I'm not a corrupt politician. So, yeah, we're coming back, and we're coming back to say the truth about all the corrupt politicians that there are.
The ground would be fertile, because a lot of people, as Chloe said there accurately, feel unrepresented by anybody who's currently trying to handle the migrant crisis. But coming up next in the big story, with reports that King Charles has snubbed Harry and Meghan from a one-year memorial for our late Queen, is this the right decision from our sovereign, legendary royal expert, royal guru, Charles Ray, is here in just a moment. You're not going to want to miss that. I will see you in just a couple.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us. From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, nah, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Yeah, look, in just a second, we are getting stuck right into whether or not King Charles is right to finally stop offering never-ending olive branches to whinge and ginge. But I'm going to go into your Terrifying world of my inbox at the moment. Dennis has been on. Thank you very much, everyone who's been getting in touch. Spot on, Patrick. We're off to a flyer here, Dennis. The thoughts of millions of ordinary people. Yes, OK. So Sue says this is exactly why I can't vote Labour. So I just did a little bit of a diatribe earlier on there about I think that Labour now has gone from being the party of the working class to possibly the party of backing illegal immigrants. Tarani says you all look fabulous. Shine on. All right, Tarani, cheers. I'm sure you do as well. Right, now, back to the matter in hand. The Duke and Duchess of Wokes, Sussex, have been snubbed by King Charles by failing to receive an invite to the one-year memorial for our beloved late monarch Queen Elizabeth II at Balmoral next month. Gosh, it doesn't really feel like a year ago, does it, that? But anyway, despite being in Europe for the Invictus Games, reports have revealed that Harry and Meghan have not had any outreach from the royal family ahead of this gathering. But has the King made the right move in excluding them from the commemorations? I certainly think so, but joining me now is the legend himself, his royal expert, royal guru. It's Charles Ray. Charles, thank you. I'll tell you why I think it's a good idea. Because it didn't give them the chance to say no. If you give them the chance to say no, you put the power in Winge and Gingy's hands, and they've had more than enough of that.
Well, absolutely. You wouldn't want Harry and Meghan anywhere near the family. I mean, he's had enough. I mean, he's a loving father. He's tried everything to get it all peaceful and everything else. It's not working. And I think that he's made the right decision to not invite them at all. And also, it is the Duchess of Sussex 42nd birthday today. And interestingly, not one member of the royal family has publicly wished her a happy birthday.
Yeah.
Which is in return for them not wishing Camilla a happy birthday. But let's get this right, this memorial. There is no actual memorial, Patrick. There is the anniversary on the 8th of September. And the palace already announced that the King is going to mark the day, which is also the day that he ascended to the throne, in private, quietly and privately. Now, other members of the royal family will be at Balmoral sometime throughout the summer, not necessarily on that day. And they will be spending time quietly and privately, in memory of the late Queen, which is something that she used to do throughout her reign at Sandringham when she had a period of quiet reflection on the anniversary of the death of her father, George VI, at Sandringham. So, the fact that Harry and Meghan are coming over, they're going to Dusseldorf the day after for the Invictus Games, fantastic. They've done very well and all that sort of stuff. But they're not coming across to England or Scotland at all. And nobody wants them here.
No.
The family don't want them. We don't want them. Stay away.
Yeah, exactly. Look, you said about Meghan Markle's birthday. Happy birthday, Meghan. But this is a great present from King Charles, which is basically saying you're not welcome here. She's served up a load of presents, hasn't she, to the royal family? Just as Prince Philip was dying, there was a big hoo-ha with Harry. Just literally as the Queen was dying, there was a massive hoo-ha there that supposedly meant that Harry didn't get on a plane with his immediate family. I think that's probably more than half of his fault as well, by the way. You've got to be a man about this sometimes and say, look, get back in your box. This is my grandma, for goodness sake. He didn't do that. Why? Because he's totally spineless, in my view. She's then served up numerous other presents. She cried into Oprah's bosom, for goodness sake. She accused the royal family of racism. She's just driven an absolute coach and horses through one of the greatest institutions that this country has ever produced, the greatest institution. I say, you know what? Well done, King Charles, for finally growing a spine, and that will do him well in the opinion polls.
It will do him well in the opinion polls because I think the monarchy is riding on a high at the moment. He's doing not a bad job. We've got Camilla, who is the Queen, and she's not doing a bad job. We've got the Prince and Princess of Wales, who are very, very popular in this country and throughout the world, as a matter of fact, even more popular in America than Harry and Meghan are, which is not too
because it's real, Charlie. Because it's real. This is the thing. People aren't stupid. And I know that people have a bit of a laugh at Americans sometimes, mainly because they eat cake for breakfast. But they're not actually stupid. They can recognise what is real. And Prince Harry is going to realise this, Charlie. Mark my words. The royal family will be around forever. Pound shop American actresses come and go.
That's absolutely right. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with this couple? I mean, they're in a lot of problems there. Their deals are going down the Swanee. Her political aspirations have gone up in smoke. Everything that they touch seems to turn to the opposite of gold. I have not said the word yet, and that's the way it's going for them. So it's just not any good. And we had so much high hopes for this couple. Let's not forget that when they came to this country, when she came to this country, she was fated by the royal family, fated by the country, and they have turned their backs on us. Well, now's our turn.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we just couldn't trust them anyway. Who's to say that they wouldn't turn up with some kind of Netflix crew in tow? You mentioned there, though, about her political ambitions going up in smoke. Well, supposedly, Joe Biden's activist sister has endorsed Meghan Markle for a go in politics and maybe even a go at the White House. Well, somebody who already endorses a bloke who's exhibiting all of the signs of senile dementia probably isn't the best endorsement that you could possibly get. But I wonder whether or not Prince Harry now has the chance of being a First Lady.
Yeah, that is possible. But however, when I say that she's had a problem, she was besieging the governor of California, the Democratic governor of California, with phone calls so much because she was asking for advice, allegedly, that he's blocked her phone calls. So it's not going great for her at all. No. If she's going to be president of the United States, God help us. I mean, we've already got a problem now with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And along's going to come, and Meghan's going to smooth things over. Oh God!
I'd like it. I'd like to see her try and hug Putin. Yeah, she says, "I'm a hugger. I'm a hugger." Yeah, not for long, you know.
Of course. If she could hug Putin, maybe she could ask him to do the interview that Harry wanted to do with Putin for Netflix.
Yeah, 100%. That would be it. She would use being the president as a way to try to get some more screen time in Suits. Look, thank you very, very much, Charlie Ray there, the fabulous man himself, royal expert. Look, it's not just about me and people like Charlie, etc. on this show. It's all about you, which is why we asked you in our little Twitter poll, was the king right to snub Harry and Meghan next month? The results are in. 85.5% of you say yes, while 14.5% of you say no. There we go. Now, the 14.5% of you, email in, tell me why. Why do you think you should have invited him? It's been olive branch after olive branch after olive branch. It's not having any of it. You know, Harry swerved straight away off the back of King Charles's coronation. I'm sorry, but that was rude again, wasn't it? Anyway, coming up next with the pundits. Are we losing out on talented people going into politics because of the nonsense that politicians have to put up with on a daily basis? Who would want to go into politics at the minute? You're not going to get rich, your family life's going to be ruined, and you'll end up with some vegan numpties on your roof. We're just going to attract psychopaths who want power. I'll see you in 2.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Another low this weekend. This one's been named Storm Anthony by the Met Office because of the risk of disruptive gales for some, heavy rain for many others. Storm Anthony is arriving through Friday night. It's this area of low pressure that has been named. And it's basically because it's arriving at such a busy time of year for holidaymakers, people who are taking part in outdoor activities, camping, caravanning and so on. Initially, it's the rain that is of concern overnight, especially across parts of Northern Ireland where the ground is saturated. That rain heading into western parts of the UK by the end of the night as well, accompanied by strengthening winds. Dry initially across some eastern and northern parts, aside from the odd shower, but this spell of wet weather clears Northern Ireland, pushes into England and Wales, southern Scotland. Showers continue for much of the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland by the end of the afternoon. As the skies brighten for Wales and the southwest, that's when the strongest winds kick in, with the risk of widespread gales, not just around coast but inland as well, potential for travel disruption and certainly some dangerous conditions around beaches. But Storm Anthony does move through, and by Sunday, a brighter day is expected. Still some heavy showers around. Lighter winds, however. These showers will be slow moving where they do occur, but they'll be hit and miss. Sunny spells in between. And then the trend through next week is for the weather to become gradually drier, brighter and warmer.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks. whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the live desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not
believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Right, OK, so look, thank you very much to everybody who's been getting in touch with a load of your wonderful views. I'm going to start with them before I go to my pundits. Christine says, if we had proportional representation, then maybe we'd get a real government who would actually do something about immigration. I like the way you think, and I am coming round to that idea. I think the only problem is that with proportional representation, there is also the chance that you would never get any governments that would actually do anything about immigration because they might all be lefty. But Ivan in Buckinghamshire says, political correctness is destroying our democracy. Not on this show, Ivan. That's for sure. Chris says, about Prince Harry, the King was a loving father to Harry, but I don't blame him for getting away from them all. Yet, there comes a point, I think, doesn't there? And his priority should now be William. Because William's next in line to the throne. William's eating it all up. William's stuck with them. And I think if he's going to have to look after anyone, I'm afraid it is going to have to be William and not Harry. That would be my view. But back with me now and talking to me about some other firecracker topics, I have got political commentator Chloe Dobbs, former editor of Labour List and political commentator Peter Edwards, and as well, deputy leader of the UK Independence Party, Rebecca Jay. Now, I am sure by now that you've all seen the Greenpeace activists protesting the home of our Prime Minister. It really is a sign of the times when the elected leader of the country can't escape from these eco-zealots. We wonder, I think, don't we, why we have such a poor group of people who are running our country, who are in opposition, who are very often anywhere near politics. And I don't actually think it's that much of a surprise. They have to put up with far too much for not enough in return. So I'm going to be deciding now with my panel. I will start again with you, Chloe, if that's all right. Do you think that we are going to end up being run by psychopaths because they're the only people who would ever want to go into politics?
Sadly, yes. I mean, there is just so little incentive
for people to get into politics now. I'm coming out of university, and my friends around me who are very intelligent people who do amazing in politics, they see the pay is far better in finance and consulting. That gap has grown bigger and bigger. And politics is only worth it as an alternative if it's going to be really enjoyable. But what is enjoyable of having your family home broken into, constantly just having to fight scandal after scandal, rather than actually being able to feel like you're making a meaningful difference in government? There's just really not much incentive.
Yeah, Peter, I'll ask your opinion on this. If someone trawls through absolutely everything that you've ever said and done, rakes up people that you might have met when you were no more than a child that had some kind of bad interaction with you, breaks into your house, tries to hammer you left, right and centre, your kids are getting bullied at school, all of this stuff, why would you go into politics unless you were just a power-hungry maniac?
Public service, so breaking into someone's house is illegal. That's a crime. I think, I don't know what happened to the Greenpeace protesters, but I thought what they did was very unpleasant and very stupid, because it was much more than protest. It was an attempt to intimidate. Yeah. I don't like Rishi Sunak's policies. I think he's hopeless, but trying to intimidate someone at their family home, the fact he was on holiday doesn't excuse it. So I thought it was a very mean and stupid thing to do. But I worked for an MP in the Labour Party many years ago, and I enjoyed it greatly. And the thing you'd say about British politics, and I hope everyone agrees, is that whether they're people you disagree with enormously, as I do, like perhaps Jacob Rees-Mogg or Boris Johnson, or people that I'm on the same page as, nearly everyone goes in out of an idea of public service, and we argue vigorously about what that is, but they've all got their own idea of how to make the country better and more prosperous and fairer. So I think there'll always be demand for going into politics, but I think especially the protests at people's homes are thankfully rare. It's social media and some of the
that's another element
where that trips over from criticism into threats and abuse. I think that will put people off.
Yeah, 100%. It's non-stop. Every single aspect of your life is now apparently fair game if you go into politics and manage to reach a certain level. And I think that's actually disgusting. And it's completely self-defeating because you end up with idiots. Or nutters. That would be my view. I know you've got into politics. I don't want to tie you with that same brush, but, you know. Are you a nutter?
Yeah.
No, but
we all know that.
Oh, come on. So no, but seriously. So you're in politics, right?
Oh,
you're in politics.
It's horrific.
Yeah.
It's absolutely the most thankless task in the whole entire world. In the last 2 months, I've been threatened physically. My safety has come into question. I've lost actually count of how many times now. Hustings were called off because of security threats not so long ago. I constantly get a stream of trolling on social media. It is endless. And do you know what? I don't mind people delving into my background and saying what they want that's the truth. Where I draw a line is when they start lying. Yeah. Because tell you what, the amount of lies that I have read about myself is lunacy. But I don't want people coming through university. Do you want to move to someone else?
No. I want to ask you a very important question. I'm going to do a bit of just a straightforward yes and no, so we keep this moving, all right? Would you pay politicians more? Yes or no?
No, they should be in it for the love of the job, and they shouldn't be career politicians. We want normal people fighting for normal people's rights, and it's not the lot that are in power at the minute because they're completely out of touch. So no.
Great. Pay them more, yes or no? Entice the best?
No, because if 80 grand is not enough for you, then you're in the wrong job.
Go on, what do you think, Chloe?
No, because I think that even if you increase it slightly, it's probably going to be way less than the sector anyway. It's got to be an enjoyable job, and that means a job where you're not receiving threats and abuse like you have been, which is just...
I just don't see that happening. This is the thing. The genie is out the bottle. The genie is out the bottle, and we're going to end up now with people who are, I think, just desperate for power and nothing else. I know a lot of people will be shouting at their TV screen saying that's what we've already got. Yeah, fine, but it will get worse. Now, shooting businesses have become the latest victim of debanking. OK, with a third of gun clubs reporting that their accounts were suddenly closed by major high street banks. You may well not go shooting. I have never woken up one morning and had the desire to slaughter a guinea fowl or a deer or anything. However, these are often rural, countryside, traditionally British pursuits, and they are being debanked, even though they are legal. It first hit the headlines, the debanking scandal with Nigel Farage, didn't it? He had his account shut for his political views. This prompted a load of other organisations to be closed. But with these perfectly legal shooting clubs being denied accounts or credit, Are we now witnessing the cancellation of British countryside activities? Rebecca, do you think that there is now an attack here on anything that people just deem to be a bit too much of British culture? That's like the fake fox hunting, for example, the drag hunting. That's legal. They're getting cancelled as well. What's going on?
Yeah, banks think that they're the government today. That's the problem. They don't like what the government are doing, so they're doing whatever they want regardless, and they're shutting down whatever they don't like. It's absolutely horrendous. And if there's one thing that we should all have a basic right to, and even, you know, sporting clubs, and to an extent, as long as it's legal, why are we trying to step in their way? It's about control.
I wonder where this is going to end, Peter, for the countryside as a whole. Because if we end up, the next step is going to be, well, you are a beef farmer or whatever, we're pro-vegan or we're pro-animal rights, is what they'll say. And then all of a sudden, farmers get debanked.
Well, Patrick, someone who's so strong with their views, you sound terrified so much of the time. You're living in a dystopia, I would say, where everything is getting worse. Britain is a free country, but on the point about shooting, perhaps like you, I can't stand shooting. I've never done it and I never will, and I've not eaten meat for something like 20 or 25 years. But it's a legal activity, and I don't think, unlike Rebecca, it's banks wanting to be the government. I think if banks are going woke, and I'm not sure they are, but if banks are going woke...
How much evidence do you need?
The reason they're doing that is for money. It's not they want to rule our lives.
Control.
That's the primary driver of activity of large banks. It's for money, and if they felt public sentiment was blowing the other way, they'd be less woke.
I don't know how they are doing it for money. I think they're doing it for the virtue signalling element of it. I really do think that they're doing it for the virtue signalling element.
Well, I would imagine if you're running a large bank with hundreds of branches around the UK, you see a dotted line between your reputation and your income.
Well, and they got that wrong, didn't they? They got it wrong with Nigel. That would be the thing. I mean, that's going to end up costing them...
Well, they did. And the point about that was because it was fairness. So, again, I disagree with Nigel Farage on pretty much everything, but his views are lawful. So then they were being unfair and hypocritical in cancelling his account.
But talking of this cancellation now, I think we are seeing metropolitan liberal elites in ivory multi-million-pound towers in the city looking at rural communities and treating them with absolute disdain and saying that hobby that you have enjoyed for generations, we're going to debank you over that because we think it's evil.
I think it's a great shame that we've now entered this age where all companies feel the need to be so politicised and have such a woke agenda. Your job as a business should be to provide the service that you provide that well. And also with banking, what I'd say is unique about this is we need to be able to bank to survive. It's very different to, say, Ferrari saying that we're not going to sell Ferraris to people who have certain views, because that's not an essential. You can't operate as a human
Well, if they stop selling in the Middle East, then they might notice that there's a big... you know, that'd be something. What kind of certain views? Like a lot of the people that... Anyway, right, look, thank you very, very much. Great to have you all on the show. Coming up next, the residents of our beloved Falkland Islands are outnumbered by sheep to the tune of 136 to 1. That's not the story, by the way, don't worry. Yet our cherished overseas territory wants to hire an equalities officer, presumably to introduce some goats. Has this obsessive drive for diversity gone too far? Let's just hope and pray now for the people of the Falklands that the sheep never rise up against them, because they really would have a scrap on their hands. Has diversity gone too far? See you in a tick.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Diversity, diversity, diversity. Hey, the cost of living crisis hasn't deterred Whitehall's drive to waste your money. Get a load of this, right? So the latest offering is a £43,000 a year equality guru for the Falkland Islands. The role comes with 41 days holiday, although let's be honest, where are you going to go from there? Tax breaks, a relocation package, possibly to somewhere other than the Falklands, and a free annual return flight. Now, it's being offered as a 4-year opportunity. You could go... We used to send out Christian missionaries, didn't we, around the world, but now we just send diversity officers to the Falkland Islands. I'm sure they'll have their work cut out, because there's a population of 3,662 people who are outnumbered by 500,000 sheep and 1 million penguins. Why are we doing this? Who cares? The Argentinians tried a bit of diversity on the Falklands, and it didn't end that well for them, did it? But what about the UK? Well, not to worry, because taxpayer money is also being thrown at other highly necessary jobs in the NHS. You know that NHS with 7.5 million people on a waiting list, record highs. They're having to rope in the private sector now in the NHS because, well, we're all getting sicker. Well, you'll love this. It's got a director of lived experience, which is ironic, I think, given most people's experience of the NHS, on £100,000 a year. A climate change manager, good job, we've got someone on that, considering the hysteria over recent weeks, haven't we? We could go on with all of this. So have we, as a society, become too obsessed with diversity? Joining me now is political commentator and UK director of the Common Sense Society. It's the wonderful Emma Webb. Emma, are we too obsessed with diversity?
In some senses, yes, but when it comes to things, I mean, there's a horrible phrase, viewpoint diversity, which I absolutely hate because it shoves people's freedom of expression and opinion into categories relating to diversity. But of course, it's diversity only in one sense. It's diversity according to crude characteristics, race, gender, sexuality, but it's got no recognition for example, the diversity of opinion within certain categories. People who are categorized, within one of those identities are expected to toe the line and hold particular opinions and put forward certain views, and very often they get demonized when they don't toe that line. So this isn't real diversity. This is a sort of paper thin veneer of diversity. But yes, ultimately the answer to your question, Patrick, is yes, we have become completely obsessed with diversity, and it's absurd. And I can imagine whoever is appointed to this role making the recommendation that to get more diversity, they should have more Argentinians on the Falkland Islands.
Oh, yeah, big time. Oh, yeah, let's just have Las Malvinas Day on the Falklands. In fact, why not make it a full-time thing? Has anyone ever had that idea before? I'm sure that would work. I'm going to read out some jobs now currently available in the NHS. Equalities manager, £62,000 a year. You could also be a diversity manager, so slightly different sides of the coin there, £77,000 a year. If you add those two salaries together, you could probably pay the annual salary of about 6 nurses. And that is why I think we are too obsessed with diversity. They would prioritise that over actually saving people's lives.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's total bureaucracy. In comparison to some of these diversity hires, actually £43,000 a year is actually not as much when you compare it to the hundreds of £1,000s some other people are getting. And also, like you said, 40 odd days holiday a year is something that most people could only dream of. So this is a really cushy job for anyone who can get it, and it's become a sort of industry that feeds itself, people coming from subjects like gender studies or anything that really ends in studies. And like you said, most people's lived experience of at the moment of the NHS is that it's fairly useless, and that they should be possibly redistributing some of that wealth for if we're going to sort of use the language that some of these. Sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
Well, you know what I'd like to see, Emma? You said something there that got me thinking this. I'd like to see the diversity amongst the diversity officers. I want to see what they look like and what backgrounds they come from, because I've got a sneaking suspicion that the old working-class white boys trope, which is, of course, far too disadvantaged in this country for my liking, I don't reckon there'll be that much diversity when it comes to the people who we tell to go out and educate the world. I mean, whatever kind of woke missionary that we're about to send over to the Falkland Islands to go and talk to some sheep and some penguins about whether or not they should all love each other a little bit more, and if that sheep decides that it also likes to sleep with another male sheep, then that's absolutely fine. Why are we doing this, really? There should be more diversity of thought, not necessarily just diversity of things like ethnicity.
Completely. We've started to cultivate what is basically an intellectual monoculture. And there's no room at all for any real diversity in there. Like I said, people find themselves being discriminated against or demonized if they belong to a certain identity category, but they don't, say, for example, somebody who's an ethnic minority but also a conservative. There's no room for them in this understanding of diversity. I think you said what's going on here. Well, in your previous section, you were talking about debanking, and that has a lot to do with ESG policies, environment, social and governance, which doesn't get spoken about very much. But the S in that, the social part of that, involves doing things like appointing DEI officers, diversity, equality and inclusion, which is what we're seeing across the public and private sector. And I think it's because so many of these organisations are signed up to ESG, and that it affects how much investment they get.
And you're exactly right, and it's the tail wagging the dog. They sign up with them because what they don't want is some employee crying racism or whatever else, and for them to be able to say, well, have you got any policies in place? So they say that we've got some policies in place, but then those policies in place end up leading what they do. And lo and behold, we end up with a diversity and equality czar going to the Falklands, which is basically an underpopulated set of rocks in the middle of the ocean. But thank you very much, Emma. Always an honour and a privilege. Emma Webb there, who is the UK director of the Common Sense Society. And you can tell that, don't you? Anyway, this show contacted the Falkland Islands government for comment. They said this is an internal Falkland Islands government role. It is not a UK government position. The position was advertised locally within the Falkland Islands before going out for overseas applications. This is gold. The post has been appointed by democratically elected members of the Falkland Islands Legislative Assembly, and it is not being paid for by the UK taxpayer. Yeah, that's fine. I still think it's absolutely nuts. Coming up next, British culture is under attack, and we should be very, very worried. I will be telling you why in just a tick. See you soon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Another low this weekend. This one's been named Storm Anthony by the Met Office because of the risk of disruptive gales for some, heavy rain for many others. Storm Anthony is arriving through Friday night. It's this area of low pressure that has been named. And it's basically because it's arriving at such a busy time of year for holidaymakers, people who are taking part in outdoor activities, camping, caravanning and so on. Initially, it's the rain that is of concern overnight, especially across parts of Northern Ireland where the ground is saturated. That rain heading into western parts of the UK by the end of the night as well, accompanied by strengthening winds. Dry initially across some eastern and northern parts, aside from the odd shower, but this spell of wet weather clears Northern Ireland, pushes into England and Wales, southern Scotland. Showers continue for much of the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland by the end of the afternoon. As the skies brighten for Wales and the southwest, that's when the strongest winds kick in, with the risk of widespread gales, not just around coast but inland as well, potential for travel disruption and certainly some dangerous conditions around beaches. But Storm Anthony does move through, and by Sunday a brighter day is expected. Still some heavy showers around. Lighter winds, however. These showers will be slow moving where they do occur, but they'll be hit and miss. Sunny spells in between. And then the trend through next week is for the weather to become gradually drier, brighter and warmer.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online all over the UK and indeed all over the world. I am Patrick Christie's, and tonight I identify as Mr. Mark Dolan. In my take at 10, British culture is well and truly under attack. Tonight's newsmaker is the esteemed political editor of The Express Online. It's the one and only David Mad Dog Maddox, who has some rather fruity ways that he thinks we could handle these climate protesters. Not all of them are legal, it must be said. And GB News is the home of the papers. Yes, we have got tomorrow's front pages from exactly 10:30 p.m. sharp. So strap yourselves in, because you will be bang up to date, way ahead of all of your mates before they even wake up tomorrow. You will know the news. It's a really busy hour coming up. Why don't you nip to the fridge, get yourself an alcoholic drink and get absolutely smashed, or fire up the kettle and make a night of it, either or. But first, it's the headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good evening to you. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. A man's been jailed for life for the murder of his 10-month-old stepson and will serve a minimum term of 28 years. Craig Crouch caused acute physical and mental suffering to Jacob Crouch over 6 months before assaulting him in a fatal attack in December 2020. Jacob had 39 rib fractures and internal injuries likened to those seen in car crash victims. Jacob's mother, Gemma Barton, was jailed for 10 years for causing or allowing his death. Mr Justice Kerr, in sentencing, said Crouch caused Jacob intense and prolonged harm.
He was a small baby who had not yet learned to walk or talk. Sadly, he never did so. Your attacks on him were an abuse of trust of the grossest kind. You knew he was dependent on the adults caring for him to protect him from harm. Instead of protecting him, you killed him.
A TikTok influencer and her mother have been found guilty of murdering 2 men in a high-speed car chase near Leicester. Mahek Bukhari and her mother, Ansreen, ambushed Saqib Hussain and Mohammed Hashim Ijazuddin and rammed their car off the road. It happened after Mr Hussain threatened to use sexually explicit material to expose an affair he was having with Miss Bukhari's mother. 2 further defendants were found guilty of murder, while 3 others were found guilty of manslaughter. Now, emergency services in Birmingham are still dealing with an ongoing incident following a number of explosions. West Midlands Fire Service responded to what they have described as a huge blaze in the Hall Green area after residents on Sarhold Road reported hearing several loud explosions this afternoon. Authorities say the blaze is now under control. More updates as and when we get it on this story. The government's turning to the private sector in an effort to clear record NHS waiting lists. 8 of 13 new community diagnostic centres to be opened in England will be operated by independent companies. Services will be free to patients. They'll carry out almost 750,000 additional scans, checks and tests every year. The Russian opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, says Vladimir Putin must not be allowed to achieve his goals after being sentenced to a further 19 years in jail. The Kremlin's most vocal political critic was found guilty of creating and funding an extremist organisation. He's already serving an 11-year sentence at a maximum security penal colony. In a social media post this evening, Mr Navalny said Russians are being forced to surrender their country to a gang of traitors and thieves. The Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, has called for his immediate release. And unseasonably strong winds are expected to hit parts of the UK this weekend, with forecasters warning of a danger to life. Storm Anthony, the first to be named by the Met Office this season, will hit Wales and southwest England later this evening, with winds of up to 65 miles per hour predicted. And a yellow rain and wind and weather warning has also been issued for Northern Ireland. This is GB News on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker too. That's it for the moment. Now it's over to Patrick.
It's 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the UK, right around the world. It's me, Patrick Christys, and tonight, yes, I am identifying as Mark Dolan. Look, tonight's newsmaker is the esteemed political editor of Express Online. It's David Mad Dog Maddox. Let me tell you what his views are when it comes to some of these climate idiots. I think he wants to do exactly what you all wish we could, but we'll find out in a second. We've got all the papers as well, 10:30 p.m. sharp, full pundit reaction. Plus, we will have all of tonight's headline heroes and back page zeros. Big stories, big guests, always big opinions. But here is my take at 10. British culture is under attack. We are being ground down, broken up, diluted and shafted, bit by bit and piece by piece. The latest round of the debanking scandal reveals that traditional rural countryside pursuits like shooting are being crushed. Companies who make guns perfectly legally for the 650,000 licensed gun owners in the UK, they're having their accounts closed. People who run companies focused on drag hunting as well. I mean, the irony is, of course, that companies that send highly sexualised drag acts into primary schools so that perverts can get their genitals out in front of kids, they can have a bank account, but not the hunting kind. No, not them. What will come next? Meat farmers are debanked because it doesn't suit a bank's vegan agenda? These are rural, British, countryside pastimes, and they are being stigmatised and defunded, cancelled. But this is just the latest attack on British culture. We've got the illegal migration crisis, the net migration crisis. I mean, we now live in a country where an illegal immigrant often has more rights than someone with a British passport. We're teaching children in schools that being white is bad. We're being taught that our history is bad. Even the Falkland Islands are writing up an equalities officer. Britain used to be a nation of shopkeepers. Our entrepreneurial spirit and ingenuity was the envy of the world, but thanks to a high tax, high regulation system, individualism is being strangled. National songs are deemed to be offensive. It seems like every little aspect of British national identity is being attacked. And you have to ask why, don't you? Why? Because once it's lost, it's gone forever. And if we're all divided up into tiny different pigeonholes, we become very easy to rule. If you destroy identity, you destroy unity. And that only serves to benefit people right at the top. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? GBviews at gbnews.com. I will go to your emails very, very shortly. Reacting to all of this take at 10 business of tonight's panel, and it's going rather well so far. Political commentator Chloe Dobbs, former editor of Labour List and political commentator Peter Edwards, and deputy leader of the UK Independence Party, Rebecca Jane. Rebecca, I will start with you and work my way back down the line. Do you feel as though British culture is being deliberately attacked and undermined?
Absolutely, yes. It's becoming almost unpopular to be British. I'm proud of being British. I think that, you know, Great Britain is great for a very valid reason. I'm proud of everything that we stand for. Yeah, OK, there's been some mistakes in our history and all the rest of it, but we can't keep living in the past. We need to celebrate what we are. We need to stop all this virtue signalling nonsense that is cancelling our very British culture. It has to stop because we're incredible and we just need to focus on our positives and move on.
Peter, do you ever worry that there is some kind of underhand agenda here to make us all more governable by dividing us all?
No, I think the opposite. I think there's an open agenda to make Britain a fairer place. And I think one thing all the panel might have in common, to be positive, is that we all care a lot about Britain and we're all patriotic. You know, think about the innovation of recent years, whether it's Tim Berners-Lee and the internet or the COVID jab of 2 or 3 years ago. Britain's at the forefront of innovation. But I think where we differ, perhaps, is I think Britain should be open about the things it's got wrong in the past. So the awful rape and brutality of the British Empire at times. Yes, the British Empire spread education, but it also spread violence, so we need to have an honest debate about that. And then I'll give you one other example, just from my own experience of living in East London, being involved in things locally. You know, if I talk to someone who's black, who's maybe in their 60s or 70s, their experience of Britain 50 years ago was very different. That's why I'm positive about Britain now. But, you know, Britain's not always been a nice place to live, and we've got to be honest. Think about those signs on pub doors in the 1960s.
But it's remarkable.
No dogs,
can I
no blacks,
just say
no
to
Irish.
that, though, Peter? It's remarkable, though, because if that reality is true, then people have had 50 or 60 or 70 years to figure out that Britain isn't a nice place to live, and it makes me really question why on earth people are desperate to come here in record numbers, even risking crossing the busiest shipping lane in the world.
But I'm saying the opposite, and I know you want to speak to Chloe as well, but I'm saying the opposite. Britain is a more open place, it's a fairer place, and yes, there are many things we did wrong in the past, particularly in the 18th and 19th century about empire, but we've made huge strides, certainly in my lifetime, and I'm in my 40s. Okay. So there are reasons to be positive about Britain, but that involves an element of honesty as well about what's gone wrong.
OK, look, Chloe, I obviously do have a genuine fear that we will lose what it means to be quintessentially British, that British culture itself will be beaten out of people and just replaced with a horrible smorgasbord of nothingness.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's absolutely abhorrent that it is apparently cancelable to fly your own British flag. That's insane. Now, Peter is right that we have to be honest about the mistakes that our country has made in the past. We have to study history to make sure we don't make the same mistakes again. But you can still celebrate Britain without that indirectly meaning that you support colonialism and our mistakes of the past. We're celebrating the good parts of Britain whilst accepting things that went wrong. That's perfectly fine. We don't need to start burning British flags, people.
Yeah, Rebecca, it's starting in schools, though, and it's starting very, very young. People being taught about, white privilege, people being taught as well about the gender ideology. And it really fascinates me that it's not OK to do a drag hunt, but it is OK to do a drag show in front of kids.
I know, honestly, it's absolutely ridiculous that the things that are going on in our schools today. It has to stop, And again, it's becoming unpopular. And everything you've just said, Peter, literally every single thing, I completely and utterly disagree with. How long do we have to keep on beating this stick for? We've all said it. We all absolutely know. People know what we did in the past is not acceptable and what we need to move on. How long do we keep on?
You're agreeing with me, then?
How long do we have to keep on? No, because you're saying we have to carry on going. Beat this stick. All you're doing is creating a civil divide, and it's starting even younger now. What is the future generations going to be? There is horrific mistakes made in the past, but they're starting to make horrific mistakes with our future. And in 30 years' time, I'm genuinely concerned for white middle-class males, because, honestly, they will be completely and utterly demonised. They already are now. And if we carry on with your attitude, it's going to get even worse.
Peter, you've been given a ticking off there. Come back.
Yes, I mean, I think it's a ticking off from another reality. I've got friends of all different faiths and of...
so do I.
That's not the point I'm making. I've got friends from lots of different backgrounds. They're very diverse. But actually, I don't think talking about the crimes in Britain's past bring division. I actually think it allows us to talk in a fair way because it's being open about what Britain got right as well as what Britain got wrong.
How long do we keep doing it for?
Forever.
Forever? You would take the knee forever, would you?
No, it's not about taking the knee. It's about teaching history. Either we teach history to kids or we don't. And I don't think Rebecca would be daft enough to say we should stop teaching history. So teaching history means honesty and realism about what Britain got right.
And what about all the great things that we got right?
Well, I quoted 2 of them today and you've quoted 0. I said COVID jab and
COVID jab. Do not start me off on the COVID jab being a great thing. Don't.
Yeah, but
ridiculous.
I was positive and you didn't have anything positive to cite.
Chloe, I will bring you in on this. Now, as somebody who's not too long out of university, do you not think that there is an endemic culture, especially with young people now, to believe that there is nothing about Britain that is worth conserving?
Absolutely. I mean, Peter is right that living standards in this country have improved massively. To live in this country now is a lot better than it was 50 years ago. Yet all we do is moan and say that it's horrible to live here, everyone around us is oppressing us, and that it's a horrible country. The Americans like Britain more than we do ourselves. It's ridiculous. And in schools, I think it is terrifying what is happening in schools. We have to teach history, but also teach them that Britain is a good country as well.
But my negativity about this actually genuinely does come from a place of positivity. I believe that we are an exceptional country full of exceptional people with an exceptional history for the most part. And if we were let off the leash a little bit, then we can actually do wonderful things. Like I said there, Rebecca, we used to be a nation of shopkeepers and entrepreneurs with great creative spirit. And now we've got things like rampant high taxation, massive over-regulation, and it just stops people from being able to flourish, in my view. And that is one element that I think, forget all the culture side of it, forget the immigration side of it, that is one area. We are strangling people's ability to start doing things that they want to do a bit more, and that is where Britain flourishes.
Absolutely, you know, and we still have nation of amazing shopkeepers and entrepreneurs and agricultural workers, and we've stopped talking about them because we're all too busy talking about all of the negative things that are around there. We need to stop all of the horrendous negative talk. We need to fight back and we need to speak up for them because they are going out of fashion. It's becoming unpopular. We have to rein that back in and make Britain great.
You've got to dangle the carrot.
Britain.
It winds me right up that people look at other countries and really think, no, I'm desperate to go and escape Britain and move over there. I know we've always had a bit of that, don't get me wrong. I mean, the expat community, of course, or in fact, what they do is they tend to just go and try and live like they live in Britain, but somewhere in Marbella. But I do think we need to be doing more for people here. Look, thank you very much. Fantastic pundit panel. We are out of time for you guys for the moment, but I will come back to you in about, 15 minutes. I've got the front pages, so you will be right up to date, finger on the pulse with all of the day's latest news. But before that, it's tonight's newsmaker. It is the legendary David Mad Dog Maddox for the latest on the climate warrior chaos. Mark my words, these climate activists are going to get more and more extreme. Why? Because for them, the doomsday clock is ticking. And with every second we get closer to the end of the world, it legitimises them taking more and more extreme action. Yeah, all right, they were on Rishi Sunak's roof this week. How long is it before some people decide to start setting bombs off? I'll see you in 2.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Well, before we ask whether or not it would be right to arm the police and then see what the police could do to certain eco-protesters, I'm going to delve into the terrifying world of my inbox. Thank you very much to everybody who's been getting in touch. Chrissy says, I used to work in the NHS in the 1970s. We all just worked together. We didn't need diversity managers. Yeah, a simpler time, wasn't it? A simpler time. Anne says, as a number of prominent politicians have declared this week, we are not ready as a country for net zero in 2030. Absolutely spot on. I'm going to make a little prediction here now. Was it Anne? It was Anne. Make a little prediction now. By the next general election, by the time that rolls around, I reckon Rishi Sunak will drop the pledge of no new petrol and diesel cars by 2030. I think he might keep that one in his back pocket, and I think he might lob it out there a week or two before the election. And I think that could be a massive vote winner. Would you vote for that? Stephen says, we don't have to drive a standard of equality. We have a woke-aversity and woke-quality. OK, all right. Get with the programme, Patrick. Thank you very much. Now, it's time now for the Newsmaker, in which a fearless commentator speaks out on the big stories of the day. The climate war rages on, with Greenpeace activists this week dousing Rishi Sunak's North Yorkshire home with oil-black fabric to protest against Britain drilling for oil and gas. Look, you know that stuff that we use to heat our homes and drive our cars? I want to know how they got there, by the way. I want to know how they got there. I just wonder how many fossil fuels were burnt in the process of them actually doing that. What were some of the things that they used to do that stunt made out of? Anyway, the group of demonstrators have been arrested, and the stunt has fuelled the debate on eco-warrior antics even further. With us to discuss this is the acclaimed political editor of Express Online, David Mad Dog Maddox. David, thank you very, very much. Look, great to have you on the show. Have you got any ideas in your back pocket as to how we can handle certain eco-numpties?
Well, I put around a call yesterday to a few of the Tory backbenchers after what happened, and they came up with some ideas. I think you were mentioning arming the police. I mean, the first response I got was, I'd have had them shot. Literally, it was obviously off the record one, but it was making the point that had this happened to the US president's house, the chances are they would have been shot because it would have been deemed such a security threat. And I had another one who was saying it's time to prescribe these groups as terrorist organisations because they are attacking our infrastructure. They're literally putting lives at risk. They're stopping ambulances going to hospitals and so forth. So, that's a fair, I mean, obviously fairly extreme kind of reaction, but these are from MPs. These are, and I think it reflects that people have had enough of these fanatics, of our fanatics, our zealots.
David, let me just
between climate change and religion, but,
this is my big concern there, right? Which is exactly as you've mentioned there. Climate change religion, climate change fear. And what happens? You end up with a load of, I would argue, quite often, young people straight out of school, straight out of university. I have interviewed some of these people, and I can confirm that there are definitely some mental issues at play there, and they are vulnerable to certain things. Climate fear is one of those things. And if they seriously believe that the world is going to end for everybody within a matter of years, unless they act now, they view themselves as the saviours of the planet. And that legitimises any kind of action, including doing things like assassinating politicians, doing things like assassinating oil barons, doing things like letting bombs off, etc. And with every passing day, I worry, David, that we are getting closer to the big one.
Well, I mean, and it's always possible, and that's the problem. At the moment, there doesn't seem to be. At the moment, they seem to be kind of allegedly peaceful protests. But I would say, and I go back to this, blocking ambulances from going to hospital is not a peaceful protest in my view. And the fact that the police weren't arresting these people instantly worries me. It still worries me, actually. I mean, there was a story just, I think, last week with a woman trying to get her baby to hospital, and they wouldn't get out of the way for her, which I think was shocking. I mean, it's outrageous. So, you know, we have to start understanding there's a view of this thing that climate change, because it's climate change, it's nice and liberal, it's soft. There's always nice white middle class people. They're either elderly in their 60s and 70s, or they're these students. But you know, they just because they're well off and middle class does not mean that they shouldn't be treated as a threat to society.
You put one of those hats and a snazzy suit on them and give them an Italian-American accent, right? And they are the mafia. Yeah. They don't like what you're doing, so they're going to go round to your house where your family live at night, and they're going to go onto your roof. Oh, it would be a shame, wouldn't it, if we turned up at your wedding and ruined your wedding day. I mean, we are, seriously, I think, not so far away from a horse's head made out of kale being revealed from Rishi Sunak's bed at some point. This is where we are. I think you could easily class them as a prescribed terror group, mainly because, actually, it does fit the CPS definition. But go on, David.
Yeah, no, the only thing was I said, don't give them any ideas, that's all. I mean, I could just imagine somebody's trying to work out the horse's head in kale as it's well. I will take that one. Thank you very much, Sheila.
Yeah.
But it is. I mean, I think that's where the frustration with the MPs and, you know, their frustration is coming from talking to their constituents. And it is outrageous what is going on. And really, I think actually the issue here is that the police have been given the powers to deal with it. They have now got to use those powers. They only used them on Coronation Day for obvious reasons.
Yeah, and it was great.
But they have now got to use those powers because otherwise things are going to get out of hand.
And you know what? And you know what? Seriously, what happened there? You're absolutely right to raise that point about Coronation Day. Was that day, or was it not better as a result of not having a load of Republicans there protesting and putting banners up and causing a hoo-ha and ruining the day? It was much better. And actually, it was over quite quickly, and the Met Police did a little apology afterwards. I know that people will say, well, that's a slippery slope towards tyranny. But you know what? I look at the tactics that some of these eco-nutters are using, and I think, so what? Get lifted, and we can apologise later if need be. David, thank you very, very much. David, Mad Dog Maddox. Right, coming up, we've got the papers at 10:30, so not long now. I will be telling you... In fact, I've had a little sneak peek. I get all the advanced copies. Anyway, and we'll have panel reaction as well, of course. Plus, tonight, headline heroes and back page zeros. But I want to know yours, all right? gbviews@gbnews.com. Get in touch. Don't go anywhere. I'll see you in a few seconds.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Another low this weekend. This one's been named Storm Anthony by the Met Office because of the risk of disruptive gales for some, heavy rain for many others. Storm Anthony is arriving through Friday night. It's this area of low pressure that has been named. And it's basically because it's arriving at such a busy time of year for holidaymakers, people who are taking part in outdoor activities, camping, caravanning and so on. Initially, it's the rain that is of concern overnight, especially across parts of Northern Ireland where the ground is saturated. That rain heading into western parts of the UK by the end of the night as well, accompanied by strengthening winds. Dry initially across some eastern and northern parts, aside from the odd shower, but this spell of wet weather clears Northern Ireland, pushes into England and Wales, southern Scotland. Showers continue for much of the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland by the end of the afternoon. As the skies brighten for Wales and the southwest, that's when the strongest winds kick in, with the risk of widespread gales, not just around coast but inland as well, potential for travel disruption and certainly some dangerous conditions around beaches. But Storm Anthony does move through, and by Sunday, a brighter day is expected. Still some heavy showers around. Lighter winds, however. These showers will be slow-moving where they do occur, but they'll be hit and miss. Sunny spells in between. And then the trend through next week is for the weather to become gradually drier, brighter and warmer.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 10:30 p.m. It's the papers. All right, let's go. I tell you what, some juicy stuff knocking about today. It's tomorrow morning's papers, but tonight, you lucky lot. I'm starting with The Independent. Get this. Ministers condemned for shameful eviction of Afghan refugees. 8,000 ordered out of hotels within weeks. 1 in 5 face homelessness. I will definitely be talking about that with my panel. I'm moving on to the Eye now. High street banks must do more for savers, says the Bank of England governor. Yeah, inclined to agree about that. Why aren't they seeing the rewards of interest rate hikes? We're going to the Daily Mirror now. And we've got skint £6.5 million lotto lag, now a decorator. Very much a Mirror story, that, actually, I must say, although, to be fair, it is interesting. Now, strap yourselves in, because this is gold, OK? We're on the Telegraph. 2 stories here immediately jump out to me. Firstly, children of 7 to get NHS trans treatment. Yeah, we will talk about that, but this one's fantastic. Gary Lineker, yeah, on the front. I got a standing ovation in M&S after the BBC suspended me. That isn't just a lie, Gary. That's an M&S lie, isn't it, mate? Who else are we on now? The Times. Bad result for UK students. It's like my results day all over again. Middle-class British pupils lose out as top universities give 1 in 4 places to foreign candidates. It's a good news day, this, people. It's a good news day. The Guardian. Playground for private equity fear for childcare. Couldn't give a toss what the Guardian thinks. There we go, have that. The Daily Star. This is more me. A moose stabbed in Skeggy. Unexpected news from I'm a Celeb Joe Pasquale. I'm a Celeb star Joe Pasquale narrowly avoided death after tripping over and impaling himself on a moose antler in Skegness. Right, OK, we're back in the room, people. We're back in the room. I am going to start with the Daily Telegraph, and I'm going to start with Gary Lineker. I got a standing ovation in M&S after the BBC suspended me. I think this says so much, this headline. Rebecca, I'll start with you. Firstly, not a shock he's in M&S. I actually secretly think he's in Waitrose. That's the first lie there. Do you really think that Gary Lineker got a standing ovation? I mean, presumably, why would anyone? Can I just ask? What, everyone in M&S is already standing up for a start.
No,
so there's that. No, you don't walk into M&S and everyone's just sitting on the floor, do you? They're looking at the kind of foie gras. No. What do you make of that, though?
I think he's an absolute liar. He's a liar who's full of his own self-importance, ego, and he's just obnoxious. And I think that we should just get rid.
Yeah, I just think it's absolute lunacy. Yeah. There is also something else on the front of the Telegraph, which we'll come to shortly. But Peter, I'll start with you. Gary Lineker getting applauded in Marks and Spencer's for... That was when he got suspended by the BBC for saying that the rhetoric of the Conservative Party over illegal immigration was basically like what the Nazis said. So he apparently got a standing ovation.
Well, and the BBC backed down, which is the interesting thing, after some of his co-commentators and so on, Match of the Day, went on strike. Look, I mean, I probably agree with Gary Lineker on a lot more things than the rest of the panel do. But the point about Gary Lineker is the pay is far too high. It's public money. I like him a lot. He's very good at his job. I'm on the same page politically. But the pay is far too high out of public funds.
OK, Chloe, I will come to you now. I'll just move it on slightly, if that's all right. I am actually going to stick with the Telegraph, just purely because this is the best front page for the day for tomorrow. Children of 7 to get NHS trans treatment. So service to replace Tavistock, that was that clinic that basically was shut down in a big hoo-ha. Will also consider the effect of medical and mental health issues. This just feels a bit like a backwards step. If you're 7 years old, you can get NHS treatment to change your gender.
Yeah, trying to read the smaller print of this, it's not completely clear to me here if by treatment they mean giving them hormones or if they mean giving them therapy to try and avoid having to reach that stage. That's not completely clear to me here. But if it is the case that the NHS is allowing 7-year-olds to change their gender, that is completely insane. You are not able at the age of 7 to make a sense.
Well, one of the key lines in this for me here, Rebecca, is this, which is that campaigners are welcoming the move, yeah, fine, but the NHS is at risk, apparently, of putting children with mental health problems on a pathway towards irreversible biological change, and this appears to be happening now.
Yeah, and they're also putting children on a pathway to irreversible mental health damage as well. So they may have mental health issues right now if they're starting to think about their gender, but they are going to have lifelong ones if we actually take this seriously and talk to children about changing their gender at the age of 7. It's lunacy, and there's no place for it in this world. Sorry.
Any views on that, Peter?
Well, we're just taking the story, but as I understand it, it's psychological and emotional support, because I think, again, we'd all agree no one under the age of 18 should have life-changing medical procedures, but as part of that, and I have quickly skimmed through it, it seems like it's excluding things like puberty blockers and giving emotional support to kids who are going through a tough time.
OK. A story that I think we all know a little bit more about, without having to spend ages digesting it at the moment. It's on The Independent, so on the front page of The Independent. Ministers condemned for, quotes, shameful eviction of Afghan refugees. I'll run through the bullet points under this now. What it says is this: 8,000 ordered out of hotels within weeks. They say 1 in 5 would face homelessness. Most were rescued from Kabul for heroic work alongside the British forces. Former Tory leader urges the government to fix the issue, saying that we owe them. Britain has a debt of honour to those who helped the war, says ex-Navy chief. Peter, I'll just stick with you on this. How do you feel, then, about the idea of Afghan refugees being evicted from hotels and essentially lining, well, and almost inevitably being sent to line the streets of Britain, I suppose?
Well, it's hugely concerning for 2 reasons. One is the basic point about the risk of homelessness and everything that comes with it. But the other point is about our debt of loyalty, and people from across the political spectrum have made the point, particularly about Afghan interpreters. The Times newspaper ran a campaign for several years on that point, saying we need to do more, because for Afghan interpreters who worked with British forces over a couple of decades, well, if they're in Britain, they need support, and if they're still in Afghanistan, they're at risk of persecution by the Taliban for helping the Allies.
I think this is really bizarre to me, before I go to you, Chloe, because it seems to me in this country at the moment that the people that we are welcoming in, that we probably should be helping. So you've got, Ukrainian women and children who have actually been fleeing a war. And if these people, the 8,000 Afghans here who've been living in hotels, have been processed, I should say, have been found to be genuine, i.e. have been found to have genuinely helped British personnel, and we are now booting them out of hotels, one would imagine quite possibly to shove those hotels full of a load of people who have literally just arrived across the channel, and we make them homeless. It does seem... That seems slightly odd to me.
Yeah, it's extremely odd. I don't understand why we can put illegal migrants in fancy new flats, but we can't look after people who sacrifice themselves to help our country. This is crazy. Where are our priorities in Britain?
You know what I worry about with this, Rebecca, is that we'll turn a load of people into people who hate Britain, actually, and we'll end up with a load of people on the streets who were quite happy to help us during a war in Afghanistan and have been declared as actually genuine, and then we turf them out onto the streets, and then, they get a bit miffed about all of that, and then what happens?
Where's the priority in the government? Because, we can't actually see from this headline, but it would suggest that they are being booted out in favour of people that are coming with the little small boats. Where's the priority? Why are we supporting the people that are coming here illegally now rather than the people that have helped the country? I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me, and I think it's actually pretty disgraceful behaviour. There's lots of disgraceful behaviour that our government are doing right now.
There is, and it is seeming increasingly as though the rights of people just arriving in small boats do appear to trump the rights of pretty much everybody else that we have. I'm going to defer to you on this one, Chloe. Bad result for UK students here. Middle-class British pupils, this is the Times, by the way, it's on the front page of the Times. Middle-class British pupils lose out as top universities give 1 in 4 places to foreign candidates. Your reaction to that?
So my experience at my university is that they love the foreign students. Why? Because they pay way more in fees. They get so much more money than the foreign students. So if you had 2 candidates that were the same ability and you had to choose one was foreign, you'd probably choose the foreign one because you're going to get a lot more funding from them.
Do you think, Peter?
Well, actually, it's completely different to the previous story, but these both come back to the failures of the British state. So the university point, universities are a bit like small businesses or medium-sized. They need enough income to keep them going. I suspect that's harder than ever before. So they're chasing the pounds or the euros or the dollars or yen of foreign students, but it's purely because they want to keep going. But although we've had a very different story about the Afghan interpreters, people coming on small boats, they're all about, in some ways, a declining capacity of the British state to do what it used to do.
No, indeed. I've thoroughly enjoyed picking through these papers. We've held a couple back for you. We have got the Daily Mail for you in just a moment, and you're not going to want to miss that one. Plus, obviously, tonight's headline heroes and backstage zeros, back page zeros, of course, as well. I want to know yours, gbviews@gbnews.com. Look, there are a lot of other stories that are nestled away on these front pages as well, so I'll be talking about them. I tell you what, I am very jealous because whoever's going to be doing the shows tomorrow, if indeed it is Nana doing, say, our usual slot of 3 till 6, they are going to have a tremendous news day to go out here. Loads more for us to talk about. I'll see you in a tick.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Right, quick time into the inbox now. Thank you very much before we get stuck into the Daily Mail's front page, which is spicy to say the least. Helen says, you're absolutely 100% right about Britain. We are losing our identity. Woke has gone mad. Dave says, we used to be a great country of design and manufacture, but now with so many snowflakes not willing to get their hands dirty, we will never be great again. Now, that's where I disagree with you. I think we will be. We just need people to get their backsides in gear and to have better leaders. Amy says about Gary Lineker, brilliantness, by the way. Gary Lineker, OK, says on the front of the Telegraph that he got a round of applause from people in M&S when he got suspended from the BBC. I walked into my local M&S in Barnes and I got a standing ovation. It was really cringe. Not as cringe as lying about getting a standing ovation in M&S, Gary, you utter loser. But Amy says, sure, that was a slow hand clap, not an ovation. Yeah, probably, to be fair, probably. Right, OK, we are now going to the Daily Mail, which is the only front page that we did not give you last time. Cop a load of this. $2.5 grand to smuggle foreign criminals out of the UK. Leave that on the screen for a second for me, please. People smugglers are cashing in twice. So they're bringing migrants to Britain and then they're helping the criminals who've committed crimes in Britain get out so that they can evade British justice. Brazen Albanian gangs are advertising escape routes in lorries for people, quote, for people who have problems and want to leave England as soon as possible. i.e., you've been caught with a load of drugs, we've bailed you, and now you need to get out sharpish. The quoted fee was $2.5 grand sterling. One criminal told a male undercover reporter, posing as a relative for a killer on the run, that he could escape to the continent that very night for just £3,000. The fact that we can't even secure our borders on the way out, I think, is absolutely fascinating. Rebecca, I'll start with you. I mean, I've got to be honest with you. If they're leaving, I don't really mind.
No, I'm of the same opinion. I mean, this is just hilarious, stroke disturbing. You know, let's stop giving all of that money to France to try and solve the problem. Let's just give it to the Albanian gangs. Get them all shipped out whilst you're there.
Come on, Peter, what do you make of this, then?
Well, it's hilarious to Rebecca, but if your family has lost a loved one to murder, you treat it very seriously, so it's usually worrying.
Shouldn't have let them in the first place.
Everything for Rebecca seems to come down to a debate about numbers. Some people are actually interested in talking about solutions. As I said earlier,
do you want to
UKIP is
talk about that?
irrelevant
I can do that
with
too.
no MPs. But the Daily Mail, give it credit, it's a good story.
It's a great
we
story.
don't have all the detail, but it's incredibly alarming, and I imagine there'll be tons of follow-up in Parliament.
Look, you make a great point, which is genuinely that, of course, if somebody does come and commit a crime here, I mean, we were focusing on the idea of the Albanian drug dealers, right? But yeah, it could be anything. It could be anything. And if someone had murdered, well, anyone, they should face justice. There then would be that flip side to it, I suppose, which is, Chloe, that, well, you know, do we want them continually clogging up our prison system? I suppose if they stay here, then, you know, we'd have to pay for them again. But we shouldn't really be allowing
they're subject to deportation at that point. And we've got to be wary we don't repeat the myths of UKIP. When people are convicted...
Oh, will you pipe down?
Rebecca,
honestly, no, give it a rest. You've got a personal grudge and you're going for it. Back down, Peter. It's nonsense.
I'm talking about policy. So criminals above a certain sentence...
I'll talk to you about policy. You're not interested in hearing about it.
Go on, Peter, quickly.
Rebecca, I didn't interrupt you. Criminals above a certain sentence get deported. So we want to see British justice wherever the criminal originates from, but we don't necessarily pay for a life sentence because they go back to their country of origin.
Right, Chloe, a word in edgeways?
Well, I think we know that we're not very good at deporting people in this country. I can't remember the figures off the top of my head, but we're really
we're bad at it. We are bad at it. We are very bad at it.
We're too soft.
So we are essentially now outsourcing our deportation to Albanian gangsters, which is an interesting turn of events, isn't it, actually, when you think about it? Look, I actually think you're all right. Genuinely, I'm not just saying that. We shouldn't have let criminals in the first place.
No, we
Fine.
shouldn't.
They should, however, be able to face justice in this country, absolutely. You know, and, yes, unfortunately, we're not very good at deporting them, which probably would mean that they just have a lifetime in a British prison at the taxpayer's expense. So we're all winners, people. We're all winners. Thank you very, very much. Right, now, of course, I am joined, as you've been hearing there, by my wonderful pundits. We've got Chloe Dobbs, we've got Peter Edwards, we've got Rebecca Jane, at least two of which are definitely going to fight each other outside in the green room. But it is now time for Headline Heroes and Back Page Zeros. This is where my wonderful pundits decide, basically, it's heroes and losers, isn't it? So, come on then, who do I start with here? I'm going to start with you, Peter.
So, heroes, England's Ashes team got back to 2-2 from 2-0 down. Yes, with a bit more careful batting, it could have been 3-2, but it was a great fight back and it was exciting along the way. OK, it's a strong start. Chloe?
My hero is Theresa Coffey for today, blacklisting Greenpeace from DEFRA, so they are no longer an insider lobby group.
Yeah, well, this good. We're off to a strong start. Go on, Rebecca.
My hero is Piers Corbyn.
Lovely.
Who is mad as the box of frogs, but absolutely against Aldi's dystopian new shops, and went in and tried to pay with cash and walked out with his strawberries and gave everybody strawberries.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to stick with that one for a minute because Piers Corbyn is...
hilarious.
Right, politely now, bit of a Fruit Loop, OK? Politely, a bit of a Fruit Loop. I mean, he makes Jeremy look completely and utterly sane, doesn't he? And that really is saying something. Sorry, Peter. But he makes a serious point. He walks into... It was an Aldi or a Co-op, I think, wasn't it? Aldi, there you go, yeah. And he's got a punnet of fruit and he's got some coins, which are legal tender, and goes to pay for it, and they say, well, for whatever reason, we're not taking that money, and then he just... well, essentially nicks them, but he's not because he's paid for them. He's exposing exactly why GBNews' Don't Kill Cash campaign is so important. Chloe, yeah, Theresa Coffey. So Theresa Coffey, what she's done now is say, in light of Greenpeace mounting Rishi Sunak's roof, you are no longer going to have the ear of government.
Yes, exactly. And that means they're going to have even less influence, which just goes to show that these groups, Just Stop Oil, Greenpeace, doing crazy stuff. It's counterproductive what they're doing at this point. Yes, it's getting press attention, but I don't think it's helping their...
Some people would say that you can't negotiate with terrorists, and it's on that Greenpeace note that I'm going to go to you, Peter, with the back page zeros.
Greenpeace are my zero, and I think, I think you have to push the boundaries in your protest, but this was a stupid and mean thing to do. It was an attempt to intimidate the Sunak family, and exactly what you shouldn't do in politics, which is give up on the ideas and just do nasty things to get publicity, so it's wrong.
Yeah, well, I think everyone agrees with you on that one. Chloe, go on, back to you, back page zeros.
Costa.
Oh,
you know why?
Hey.
I'm sorry, but I am not going to buy a coffee in that establishment ever again if they think the good advertising is putting a cartoon of a woman with chopped off boobs.
I mean, I actually got a very strong email on that from a lady who sadly had undergone a double mastectomy due to breast cancer, and she said that she sympathise with anyone who wanted to go through that kind of surgery, but she didn't want to have to look at the scars even on a cartoon advert because it was a depressing reminder. Very quickly, Rebecca, who's your back page zero?
Peter.
No, it's not. It's not what's on my list. Let's be friends.
After saying, don't make it personal.
Don't make it personal.
Stop, you're done. Sadiq Khan, the king of taxation and control, who is gloated about his ULEZ victory this week when all he's doing is penalising hard-working individuals.
I'll tell you what, this has been an absolutely fabulous show. I have loved every single second of it. Can I thank you all personally for taking time out of your Friday night to enlighten myself and the nation? I would really like to thank everybody else who's been watching and tuning in and listening in and absorbing all of our content on social media as well. Now, we've got headliners next, but can I just tell you, you are going to be absolutely loving the content they've got served up. We've got Afghans evicted onto the street, so we're going to have a homeless Afghan crisis. We've got children of 7 who are going to get NHS trans treatment. Gary Lineker's told an absolute whopper on the front of the Telegraph. Bad results for UK students, and Albanians are trying to smuggle criminals out of Britain. You couldn't make it up. Headliners on next.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Another low this weekend. This one's been named Storm Anthony by the Met Office because of the risk of disruptive gales for some, heavy rain for many others. Storm Anthony is arriving through Friday night. It's this area of low pressure that has been named. And it's basically because it's arriving at such a busy time of year for holidaymakers, people who are taking part in outdoor activities, camping, caravanning and so on. Initially, it's the rain that is of concern overnight, especially across parts of Northern Ireland where the ground is saturated. That rain heading into western parts of the UK by the end of the night as well, accompanied by strengthening winds. Dry initially across some eastern and northern parts, aside from the odd shower, but this spell of wet weather clears Northern Ireland, pushes into England and Wales, southern Scotland. Showers continue for much of the rest of Scotland and Northern Ireland by the end of the afternoon. As the skies brighten for Wales and the southwest, that's when the strongest winds kick in, with the risk of widespread gales, not just around coast but inland as well, potential for travel disruption and certainly some dangerous conditions around beaches. But Storm Anthony does move through, and by Sunday, a brighter day is expected. Still some heavy showers around. Lighter winds, however. These showers will be slow-moving where they do occur, but they'll be hit and miss. Sunny spells in between. And then the trend through next week is for the weather to become gradually drier, brighter and warmer.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm